Hey, your viewers and viewers, my name is General Red Strategist, welcome back to So You're Being Hunted. This is episode 353 now, so I've actually come back here to the Centre Island, continuing on, of course, with our Turntables Challenge attempt number 2. We've just been to the West Island, and I'm pretty sure I've basically done everything on that island that I need to. So I've done the Centre, I've done the West. As far as I'm aware, I don't think I did any of the other 3 islands, though, did I, just yet? So we'll take a look at one of the other ones. Just started recording now, more or less, even though technically some people would say maybe I should have started recording once I got to another island, but you know me. The beauty of this challenge is I can take my time wandering around to different islands, and in the meantime, as I'm doing that, I can have my usual sort of podcast style discussions as I'm going along, where I'm just talking about various gubbins and whatever else have you. And I definitely had something in particular in mind, actually, to discuss as we start off with this episode. So I don't know if I've mentioned. Let me rephrase that. I know that in previous videos that I've done in my So You're Being Hunted series, and probably in videos as well in other series that I do here on my YouTube channel, I have mentioned how when I was a kid, I used to really love Brian Jakes' Redwall series. You know those books, the ones with the animals who lived in Redwall Abbey, and they used to go on adventures, things like that. So I've mentioned before how I used to really, really enjoy those books as a kid. And I don't know if I've mentioned this in my So You're Being Hunted series. Maybe I have, but if I have, I've completely forgotten. And if I've completely forgotten, then fuck it, I'm just going to talk about it here again. But recently, I actually rediscovered them. I don't know really what kind of possessed me to do it, but I decided, you know what? I'm going to buy a couple of those old books and I'm going to reread them and see what, see how good they were. Are they as good as I kind of remember them from when I was a kid? And, the answer to that is definitely yes. They are as enjoyable now as an adult as they were when I was a kid. And so the first couple of ones that I actually picked up originally, so I got them from Amazon. I got the original Redwall and Martin the Warrior. So I got those ones. More recently, after I'd read those, I then decided, you know what, I'll pick up another couple. So I got Mossflower and I got The Legend of Luke. And now I've picked up another 3, which I'm going to start reading very soon. So Matameo, The Outcast of Redwall, or Outcast of Redwall as it's technically just called, and what was the other one? Marielle of Redwall, that one, which I can't remember. Is it called Marielle of Redwall, or is it just Marielle? It's one or the other. But so yeah, I've got those, and I've been rediscovering some of the childhood literature that I so enjoyed. The literature of my youth, ladies and gentlemen, back when I was a preteen kid. And yeah, definitely reading back over those now. They're as good as I remember them being. Because that's the thing, Brian Jakes, he wrote over bloody 20 of those books in the Redwall series, and he also wrote other books as well. Don't know if you've ever, if you remember, he also had a trilogy of books, the Flying Dutchman series. I can't remember the exact titles of them, but that was essentially about a character who was kind of connected in some way to the legend of the ghost ship of the Flying Dutchman. So he wrote a load of other books as well. But the Redwall ones are the ones he's most famous for. And in essence, as like I say, they're as good as I remember them now that I start reading them. And there's all kinds of things that I think as an adult I sort of appreciate more or pick up on more in those stories. I'll just jump cut here as I go to the next island, but I'll continue talking once we get there. Right, we're on the North Island, and as we start our exploration here, let's just continue on with what I was saying. So, I guess many people probably have actually had this, haven't they, where they remember something from their youth that they really enjoyed, a book they read, maybe a film they watched, a TV show, something like that. And then, many, many years later, as an adult, they remember it and think, oh yeah, do you remember that thing that I really loved when I was a kid? And they decide to pick it up again as an adult and reread it again. And they sort of find themselves thinking, there's themes and things going on in this story or whatever, which I think as a kid I maybe just didn't really appreciate, or maybe I didn't really get. And I must say, certainly come back to the Redwall books now, as an adult, there are things like that I pick up on, which I now think to myself, yeah, as a kid I don't think I ever really kind of appreciated or picked up on that whether it be certain interactions between certain characters or certain themes or whatever. So, for example, like you take Martin the Warrior as an instance, as a first instance. So, Martin the Warrior, I think, was written in the 80s, so it's one of actually the older entries in the Redwall series, and it's meant to be the story of the eponymous character Martin the Warrior and his kind of first enemy who he went up against. And in essence, so it's a story about him basically escaping from slavery, and he comes back to defeat the very bad guy who enslaved him. And during his escape, he meets all kinds of characters, he makes all kinds of friends, things like that. And he gets away, and eventually he goes back with his new friends, and he defeats the enemy, in essence. So that's the essence of what Martin the Warrior is all about, storyline-wise. But I always kind of think to myself, I didn't mean to do that. Pressed the wrong button completely and then instinctively left-clicked. But the thing about that book was, apart from Martin himself, there was also another character in that called Rose. And I think as a child, I never really understood or fully appreciated the kind of dynamic between those characters, in the sense that I think I was maybe too kind of innocent to really get what the relationship between those characters was meant to be. Because those characters, here's the thing, right? Martin the Warrior has a very bittersweet ending, okay? I would say spoilers, but here's the thing. That book's been out since bloody 1986 or whenever. So if you haven't read it by now, then tough shit. I'm not giving you too much of a spoiler warning here, even though what I am about to say is pretty much betraying the ultimate conclusion of that story. But in essence, the thing is, in the end of the story, when he's fighting the big bad guy, this character, this Rose, as she's called, she dies in the final battle between Martin and the baddie. So he wins the day, but it comes at a terrible cost. And I always remember as a kid, Martin the Warrior was a really kind of bittersweet novel. It was such what you call like a Pyrrhic victory in the end. The ending was so bittersweet. But it was a good novel, though, don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it as a kid. But I think now as an adult, I feel like I get what was really going on in terms of those two characters, Martin and Rose. Because as a kid, I think I just thought that, they were really, really good friends. Hence why Martin gets so upset at the end after Rose's death. But of course, as an adult, I now look back and I think, okay, actually, no, it's not that they're very good friends. There's more to it than that. What's actually going on there is there's a romance, in essence, between the two characters. So, yeah, I think that's something that as a kid I was too kind of innocent, and I didn't really get that, because I was too young to really understand what romance and relationships and things like this actually were. So yeah, it was good kind of rereading that story and thinking about that. But other ones that I've just reread so far, it's always curious to think about the kind of themes that come up, which are very much kind of, how to say, kind of inspired by things that do actually go on in the world, on the political scene, or like big political issues, which do kind of have an effect on elements of the story. So, like, if you take Mossflower, for instance, so that one, in essence, is another story about Martin the Warrior. It's the story of how he came to Mossflower, how he met a load of the characters who would go on to build Redwall Abbey and things like that. And it's about him fighting to help his friends free Mossflower from the reign of the evil wildcat, the Zarmina Green Eyes, or whatever she's called. I've got birds flying through the landscape there, in true Surrey being hunted fashion, good for them. But Zarmina, of course, is the daughter of another character, Vidorga Green Eye, or Green Eyes, whatever he's called. Her father, the old sort of warlord dude. And in the kind of first few chapters of that book, what really kind of struck me is this kind of idea of the relationship between Vidorga and his army and the innocent woodlanders, who are basically his subjects, subject to his kind of authoritarian rule. And in essence, the book kind of hints that the relationship between them is that Vidorga and his vermin basically tolerate the presence of the woodland creatures in their domain, as long as the creatures kind of pay tax to them, and in return, Vidorga and his army basically allow the woodlanders to settle and live in that environment and provide a certain degree of, I don't know, quote unquote security, as it were. And I sort of think to myself, there's clear kind of political questions and political themes that I feel like are going on in that storyline there. In terms of, it's all about kind of the balance between security and liberty, one could say. So, on the one hand, Vidorga and his troops offer this facade of apparent security in the sense that they're armed, they could hold off any threats that come. But the woodlanders ultimately are not truly free, because at the end of the day they're having to pay extortionate amounts of their resources for this benefit. And I think to myself, it's just so... It's such an interesting little political theme, and it's one that I think adults and an adult audience would perhaps appreciate more than necessarily a child might do. Because I'm sure, if you're a history buff, or if you follow political affairs and things like that, it's a kind of debate and a question which you might be quite aware of, and one that maybe you can find parallels to in the real world. Stuff like that. So it's things like that are always quite interesting when you're rereading childhood stuff, childhood novels, stories and whatever, and then as an adult you sort of look at it and you think, okay, there's interesting parallels here between real life issues and occurrences and things that are going on in reality. Have a sip of tea like that. Now I am just waiting around here because I'm hoping that some more robots will show up at this house in a bit so I can do an ambush, but at the moment it's all been very quiet, which is fine. Gives me plenty of space just to witter on about what I want to talk about. But I'm thinking as well, what else is quite interesting in any of the Redwall books that I've picked up on so far. I mean, a lot of Redwall books essentially all have the same kind of common ingredients to them. A heroic character, riddles, an adventure, secrets that the characters have to locate, usually connected to said riddles I mentioned a moment ago. There'll be like a big bad guy and things like that. So, yeah, there's plenty of interesting stuff right there. But, man, yeah, like I say, it's good to reread them as an adult and just pick up on some of the things which maybe as a child I didn't fully appreciate. I must say, looking back, I think if I recall correctly, when I was a kid, probably my favourite of the Redwall series were the ones concerning Martin the Warrior, because I felt like that character, got a lot of development to him in all the stories he was in. I mean, admittedly, of the 20-odd Redwall stories that Brian Jakes wrote, Martin himself isn't a principal character in most of them. He's just like a sort of a legend that is spoken about in the background. In fact, he only actually features as a character in 3 books in particular, so Martin the Warrior, Mossflower and The Legend of Luke. But each one's interesting because it kind of fleshes out his character a lot. So, you start out in Martin the Warrior where he's just a kind of stubborn, young character who, is certainly very brave and certainly has a very strong sense of justice, but also perhaps because he's young, he has that youthful naivety, as it were. He kind of sees himself as a bit invincible, and of course, that ultimately comes back to bite him really hard, obviously with the death of Rose, which I mentioned earlier, and things like that. So you could say that perhaps among other things, Martin the Warrior is a tale of youthful naivety and the kind of headstrong qualities of youth and things like that, and how that sometimes can prove to be a bad thing. So there's that. Mossflower, of course, is the first book that I think Brian Jakes wrote where Martin the Warrior actually featured as a character, and of course that was essentially about him helping free the Woodlanders, and there is growth in there because Mossflower, of course, is set after, chronologically speaking, set after the events of Martin the Warrior, even though the book was actually written before Martin the Warrior. But it features Martin the Warrior going out, learning fighting skills from another character, and just generally becoming stronger, and then coming back and liberating the woods of Mossflower from the evil. And of course, The Legend of Luke just fleshes out some of his character tree, not his character tree, his family tree rather, with of course his father and all that. So it tells us a little bit more about where Martin was born, where he actually came from. So it's good stuff, yeah, things like that. that's the thing actually about the Redwall series, like I just mentioned a moment ago. You know, Brian Jakes, although you know each and every one of the books can be sort of placed into a chronological order in terms of when they're meant to be taking place, the actual publication order, the actual order in which Brian Jakes wrote them was different. So, like I say, Mossfire was written before Martin the Warrior book chronologically takes place after it. That's the thing, yeah. It's such a vividly imagined world, that was. The world of Redwall. God damn it, are there any hunters who are actually going to show up here? Or do I need to maybe whip out the old trombone and do some tromboning? Maybe I need to do that, but that might have to wait for the next episode, ladies and gentlemen. So, tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to just go and save at the jetty, and I'll wrap up here. So this is episode 353 of So You're Being Hunted with me, General Red Strategist. Bit of a shorter episode today, but I kind of envisage this one being more of a podcast-style episode, to be honest. So what I'm probably going to do is, next episode, I'll probably try using my trombone and whatever to see if I can lure some hunters over to that house, and then we'll continue on with the challenge as usual, rather than just passively waiting around for them to appear. So yeah, hope you all enjoyed this, everybody. Facebook and Twitter links down below, along with a link to my propagandist channel. If you enjoyed, don't forget to leave a like and all that. And comment down below, ladies and gents. What about your experiences with childhood stuff? Have you ever kind of revisited the things that you enjoyed as a youth, and as an adult, do you find that maybe there are things about them that you understand or appreciate more? Things like this. And let me know down below. Might be something interesting in that. But other than that, I'm going to sign off now. Goodbye, everybody. There we are. Got him. Oh. Come on. Get him. Get him. Get him. Get him. Get him. Get him. God damn it, there's loads of them. Oh, and there's another one. Oh my god, they're all floating up. Poof. Oh god, you're up there. Oh no. God, how many are there? That got him.